All right, thank you. All right, we're calling to order the meeting for the Historic Area Commission on September 8th at 6:30. First order of business is roll call of members. So Laura Fontana present.
Kevin Wade present.
Karen Hayward Olivas present.
And Leila Hammer, architect, present.
And absent is Justin Day. So everyone should have received in advance the minutes from the meeting on July 14th, 2022. Thanks to Kevin. Oh, and also not present is Matt. Lovely. So thanks for Kevin for running that meeting. So can we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Second. Is there any discussion? Okay, if there's no discussion, we can approve as submitted. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes as each member? I approve.
I approve.
Minutes are now approved. So tonight we have one new application on file that we are going to be reviewing. And I believe there was two components of it. So a replace the fence and construct the shed. So I think the replace the fence was already done on a tier 1. So great.
Thank you.
Sure. And the construction of the shed, even though it appears you've met all the parameters for the design, the concept, the materials, it's any construction that gets done has to come in front of the commissioner, so it can't be a tier 1.
Sure.
So we appreciate you coming out this evening. So everyone should have that, that application in front of them. And let me just go to the drawings. Here. So the wood fence is done. All right, so shed. So thank you very much for all the information that you've provided in advance. So it looks like well, why don't you tell us a little bit about the project?
Sure. Purpose of the project is to have a little outdoor garden shed space for outdoor storage, someplace to put the weed eater that's not a coat closet. We love our new house, but we're finding we need a little bits and pieces of spaces to put things like that, outdoor stuff. So that was the reason for this. We initially looked at one of those drop off by the shed on the side of the road and have it dropped off kind of arrangements from the various shed makers around, and we got some ideas from those guys, but we thought we could probably do something a little better and a little cheaper ourselves. So we decided to design something that you see here in the package that is consistent with the house design, but outbuilding and see visual off to the side, so off to the back. So that.
So it looks like it's 10 by 18. Is that, or 10 by 16? Okay, 10 by 16.
Yeah, makes good use of material sizes that way. One floor, modest roof pitch, so not a huge obstruction to anyone's view. Essentially the same design aesthetic as the house, so siding and shingles for the roof. Nicely trimmed out windows, simple, but a couple of windows and then the larger door on one side, entry from that.
Sure.
House side. So.
And so I think the parameters that we have to just make sure is that the setbacks, right? So from your property lines.
Right.
So I think, what are we, 5 feet from the back, and then we can choose right 5 feet from the back property line.
Now, our property does have that access alleyway in between the back of houses on 3rd and the back of the houses on 4th. So our property line does actually run down the center of that, whereas our fence is 5 feet back. So each property has a 5-foot setback for the fence line to maintain the access to that old, what do you call it? It's an alleyway, I guess. So
And are you about 3 feet away from the fence?
Yes.
from the on the neighbor's side, yes. So I interpreted that requirement to be that we could put the shed on our fence line and still be 5 feet back from our property line, which is in fact down the center of that, the property line being, the boundary being down the center of that alleyway. So if that needs clarification, let me know, but that's how I interpreted that.
Well, there's back and then there's side setback.
Yeah, the side setback is, I think, 3 feet, is that, or 5 feet? Is that even you? I can't remember what our application says, but,
I think the back says 5, the side setback, there's some leeway.
okay.
I think 3 feet is probably a good point.
We intend to go by our survey, because the fence, as you can see from the survey, I think you have drafted out there.
Yeah, right.
That's the fence line is close to where it's supposed to be for the 5-foot setback, but, so we'll put it where it should be according to the requirements as opposed to cheating it towards the center. If we put it on the fence line, it would be a little too close, so.
Yeah.
The beauty of this is that it is in fact a movable thing, so you just pick the shed up and move it.
Right, so what we're saying is your fence is 5 feet from your property line.
It should be, it's not quite.
Okay, but close enough, right? So I guess we're wondering is if they put the shed
We're saying
up against the fence, is that 5 feet from the property line? And
it's textually and legally 5 feet from the property line.
Right,
It would be better just for if you had some bandwidth at the back, like as I said, an extra 2 or 3 feet from the fence, just so it kind of actually stands alone. But I mean, per the letter of, now of course it's different when you have a property line that's in the middle, as you said, in the middle of an alley, because then if you were to build something to that's it, yeah.
okay, so. Yeah, yeah.
You'd be willing to move it if it has to be moved.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the whole kind of, because I'm aware of these sort of
I mean,
ambiguities.
moving
within the old
12 inches or
survey.
19
Yeah,
inches or something.
Yeah,
Right.
just slightly so that it kind of breathes a bit separately from the fence on either side, that should be fine.
There, I would like to put the fence on our proper boundary, but then it doesn't match the fence of the neighbor's property. which is-
You're in an alignment, yeah.
Yeah, and I'd kind of like to keep it in alignment, and I think, I don't know, unless there's an objection, I think that the aesthetic continuity of that fence line is the overriding principle there.
Yeah, and that's where giving, to Kevin's point about moving it a little bit in, then allows that fence to breathe with everything, just, the perception that, even for you wouldn't want to have flex.
Okay, so I think we got that, and then, you put down all the materials that you're using, so obviously the brick, I can't say the brick, the wood, the roof looked appropriate, the
Yeah.
roofs looked appropriate, so I think everything was appropriate materials, so we do appreciate you.
Yeah, the only thing is there's a fiberglass door. Now this is, which normally like we don't do fiberglass doors, but that's on the building. This is a utilitarian building that's on the back of the property, where alternate materials would be acceptable. And I think the doors typically apply to new construction. Utilitarian appendices.
Oh, so these doors are fiberglass.
That's it, yeah, the doors are fiberglass.
That specification we copied from when we were actually going to have one delivered to us, pre-made, so
Yeah.
if we need to adjust that, we certainly can, although
I mean, the preference to be consistent is that it could be an alternate. We're not saying it has to be wood, but typically fiberglass doors are the one doors that are like a no-no in the historic district. Now granted, it's typically for the primary building and construction, not for a secondary shed in the back. But that is sort of typically one of the rules. So if there would be an alternate material that could be used, it's not fiberglass, does not have to be wood. I think that would be the preferred option to be consistent.
okay. Well, I have no objection to decent wooden.
So So a wood alternative you would be okay with for the doors.
Could you state when we'll put it in the application if you agree to that, and then
Yeah.
we can take steps on that?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Could you identify what type of materials you might be planning to use instead of the fiberglass? So that can be made part of your application for our actions today.
Sure. I haven't built doors in a long time, but,
You've built enough.
I've built, yeah, I always build doors.
You can be generic.
Yeah,
You don't have to give a model number.
Okay, wooden doors are raised panel, what is it? 6 panel.
Yeah.
Raised panel doors, what we'd like to do. It's one single 36-inch door on the house side and then two 30 or 36 door, I can't remember.
I think
the
the
dimensions.
30.
Two 30 inches doors
Yeah.
on the southeast side. Just,
Well, we're just gonna say a wood alternative.
Yeah, we just said,
Solid
yeah,
wood,
wood
yeah.
alternative
Wood
would be
alternative.
fine.
It's all we're
Yeah.
saying. So you,
Primed and painted twice.
okay, so we'll just say wood alternative doors. All right, any other questions or comments for the applicant?
I just want to say in front of the group, what I told them before the meeting started, that I really appreciate a comprehensive application with all the details, because it makes the review so much easier, so.
Oh, yeah.
I
no,
wanted to express it for the record.
Appreciate it.
Not that it matters to the decision here, but out of my personal curiosity, do you build homes or do you do it as a hobby?
I was looking
He's
at
retired. I just want that for the record.
examples of
You make a lot of
our work.
Yeah.
We're both retired.
I used to do historic preservation work, working where we used to live, so. And then I built our house and.
Which is in the package.
Which is in
because
the
we
package.
figured
Very nice.
once we couldn't really get anyone to respond to either installing the fence or building the shed, we were like, we can do this.
Right.
That's right.
And so we figured we might as well just give you some examples of what we left behind in the Virgin Islands. So,
Thank you very much.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, so we'll make a motion, so I'll make a motion. So the motion is to approve the application as presented for the shed with one clarification or two clarifications. The setback might be 7 feet from your property line, right? So give it a little bit of breathing room off the fence.
Sure.
And second would be just wood alternative for the doors versus what was in the application. Can
I second the
I have a
motion.
second? All in favor?
Aye.
Your motion, your shed has been approved.
Thank you. Thank you all very much.
Well, thank you for coming prepared and going through the applicable application process and providing all the information. It just does make it much easier for us. Any other, is there anything we can help you
Yeah,
with?
I
gentlemen?
was on the list for some windows today. Like I'm getting windows, so I was on the list of what was going to be discussed.
Are you 128 East Fourth?
Yes.
That was approved as a tier 1. So,
I don't know what that means.
oh,
means
that
you
means
can
it was
do it.
approved, that the, so
Yeah.
that's why it's scratched on the agenda, which means.
Newspaper came out today and everybody was crossed off except for the bottom one.
Oh.
And then it was actually, everyone was crossed off except for the
It's
top
my
one,
first
which is
time
us.
doing this, so.
Well, it's like.
That's okay, we
if you-
appreciate
So I
yeah.
need to buy the newspaper next time I do this.
Or you can always give a call to make, what happens is because you come in on time, they get on the agenda. But there's a rolling process of in-staff or review with just myself, and if they meet the criteria, then you don't have to wait for the meeting. It's
Oh.
approved and you can move forward.
So,
But it's nice.
were
to
you
thank
notified from the
I
city
got
about your
something stuck
application?
on the window.
Which was the notification for the meeting?
Yes. That's all I
So
got.
there is a slight delay then, so we'll go back and kind of try to close this
Well-
loophole. So once Layla approves it as a tier 1, you should be notified from the city that it was a tier 1 approval
So-
and you can continue with your
And
application.
it
But
has been
since you-
approved.
And it
Let's-
has, been-
correct?
yes.
Well,
it
no,
has.
no, since you are here, I know that was reviewed as a tier 1, but I was double checking the 4 windows. Yeah, you had said that you were proposing to replace your 4 windows with Fibrex windows.
Well, I don't, know. The contractor did the application.
Yes, and so Marika probably communicated to your contractor, because when he puts it in, we had said that it was reviewed, and that we mentioned at the end of August that it was not approved because you cannot use alternate materials on elevations that are visible from the public right of way, so it should be wood windows.
Okay,
So we just said it's not approved. If it's a wood windows, then that could come back and be approved the same day. So your
Okay.
contractor needs to resubmit it with wood windows for the front. For the front
oh,
windows.
okay,
Yeah.
so, all right, I think, yeah, I don't know what the process is, but
Yeah.
okay, thanks, now I do, now I gotta
You're
get
quite
on the contractors.
Oh, boy, I know, that's.
Because I knew there was another 4 windows that I recently approved also as a tier 1, and I said, let me just double check. And yes, that was the one with Fibrex is not appropriate. Fiberglass windows are not appropriate, visible from the public right of way.
Yeah,
It has
yeah,
to be
because,
wood.
yeah, these are front
Exactly.
facing windows.
Yes, so it has
Okay,
to be.
very good, thank you.
All right, so now.
Enjoy your windows.
Thank you. Well,
Well, no, we didn't get them
Okay.
yet. He didn't get them yet.
When you're able to get them, and hopefully, if he reapplies quickly, you will not have to wait a month. As soon as it's updated and
Okay.
reapplied as wood windows,
but they
Marika-
have been informed, because they.
they should have, yes, Marika informs everybody when things are not approved, they should have gotten notification from the city there was not
Okay,
approved.
yeah, they just didn't inform me.
Only your
Sorry about that.
Maybe that's what I'm paying them for.
Okay, so,
Yeah, I was like double checking, because I literally approved for windows, and I'm like, wait a minute, that address. Let's just double check.
all right, so that application is pending, not approved, but in the contractor have been informed.
Yeah.
Okay, Leila,
Anything
let's,
else from us?
nope, you're all good. Thank
Okay,
you.
okay.
We're just
You
gonna
can
go.
stay
over
and
some
enjoy
things.
this if you'd like.
Oh,
you're already approved.
yeah, you're fine. So Leila, all these other ones, good?
All these other ones were reviewed and processed, and actually in the packet, Marika put the.
Yeah, I see
Because what she does is when I say something needs to come to hack, then she adds that to the file, so applicants understand why it's coming to hack, because I put the reasoning if it needs to come to hack.
All right, so let's just
Yeah, so if you
look
look
at
at it,
the list.
you can sort of see 128, obviously the windows were not.
Yeah.
53, that one was approved. It was brick and sidewalk. There was a rebuilding of screen,
Something
34
that's
East
not
Third.
approved.
That one was not approved because there were no pictures of the existing porch they were replacing. But they provided those by email, so that's going to be an administrative review and an approval.
Okay.
Because they're replacing it in kind. 114 The Strand, again, that was air conditioning units where they were and in the same location, so that was approved. And then 18 East Third Street was just, they came back and actually, instead of wanting to do the alternate material last time, they're just gonna do a black wrought iron fence. So that was approved.
Oh, they are. Okay. All right, so then 128 East Fourth, let's just make that very clear in the minutes, was not approved.
Yes, the material was not appropriate, it has to be resubmitted. Yes.
So that'll be done, okay. Let's just quickly talk about why 137 and 39 West Third Street are not on why we crossed them off. So tried to make it very clear in our email that unlike the Stars, who came very prepared for their application, that application was not prepared. So we did not have, one thing is that you have to get us all the information 10 days in advance of the meeting. We didn't have all the information 10 days in advance. And it is not our job to track people down on a day after day basis with emails to try to get the information prior to the, to the meeting. It needs to be complete application 10 days prior to our meeting, and then we'll hear it at the meeting. So that is why we are not 37 and 39. Sure. So if for the next October meeting, they have the completed application to us 10 days prior, we will review that application at that time. There was also a change of ownership that was not within that 10-day period. So they were applying before they owned the property. That was another situation. So That's why we are not hearing 37 and 39 West Third Street. Okay. Any other questions or comments about that? Just so we're clear as to why. So I only have 2 more meetings, so you guys have to know these guidelines because you have, this is something that you're gonna have to pick up on too and stand firm and just say, you have to have the information to come in front of you. So that is, we have set the precedence, we have these guidelines for a reason, we have this application process for a reason. People have to come prepared if they want to be heard at a meeting. So
And the support from HAC is important because not being a member of staff, as advisor, I can clearly state and say, and then also Marika can convey, but of course, being the interface with the public, sometimes it's challenging to be the one reiterating that. So when they hear that everybody's speaking the same voice, and HAC members are reinforcing that, since that was the whole purpose of creating the tier 1 review and the tier 2 reviews and the recently updated application to try to make it as clear as possible with checklists, then that's where that rationale is very helpful for the process.
right. So there's nothing else. We can have a motion to adjourn.
I had a
Go on,
quick question going along with what you said. As you read online, things getting crossed out, how does one find out what the status or the reason for being dropped off the agenda is? Call you, call Marissa?
If you want to know the rationale, Marika would be the first. Typically, the reason these are crossed off the agenda is either they wind up being a tier 1, so they put on there and they get removed, or if they were received at a point and put on there just to make sure they hold the spot, but the review is done and they're not complete, then they can't be put on there. So if the rationale is pursued, then Marika would be the first point of contact.
And tier 1 basically falls within the parameters of how it's stated.
Met all the guidelines.
Met all the guidelines.
Met all the guidelines, yep. So they're using the appropriate materials, anything that they were doing meets the guidelines, so they don't have to wait to come in front of the commissioners.
With the exception that that's only applicable if it's not work that's being done, for example, a courthouse or one of the big primary buildings, which
Right.
are
The
key
key
buildings.
buildings.
And then second, if it's not a new construction or an addition. For example, the shed, met all the criteria. If it had been a question sort of windows or something and replacing a porch, I could have said, yes, it meets the criteria, everything is wood. It does not, but if you could change the door, then that would meet. But because it's a shed and it's an addition, additions have to be reviewed by the commission.
Even if it meets the.
Yeah.
criteria.
So the review says that, and that's all explained in the 2-tier process within the guidelines, including categories, which fall into which review and all that.
Thanks.
Any other questions
do-
or comments?
I do
Yeah,
have a comment,
please.
yeah, just as the liaison for the planning commission, it came up in the last planning commission meeting about just randomly, any question or will HAC have any issues or any input on the cords or electric chargers being splayed throughout the area as people are getting chargers? Is there any input or any feedback on that? So it hasn't been brought up, but I'll just.
You mean road people having cables going, temporary things like cables going?
Or what
I
the,
get the sense, if if the neighbor, for example, has a concern, would they bring it to HAC or I don't know. if there's
So I
any-
think
HAC
our
has any
input
jurisdiction
is-
on it. Yeah.
our input is not the cord going across the sidewalk. Our purview would be if they want to put something in the sidewalk
Yeah.
Okay.
Or
as
they-
their box,
Okay.
like Tommy
Yeah.
Clayton has,
Yeah.
like that's an appropriate type of electrical box. So if they were gonna do something that would be in the sidewalk,
Structure.
a structure, not the cord.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's because it becomes part of the streetscape. So
Okay.
even if they actually wanted to put a box right in their fence, but it came out over the fence and was something would be visible or something like that, anything that affects the streetscape, it's visible from the public right of way, that would come to HAC.
I'm sure the cord across the sidewalk is a safety issue.
It's a
Right.
So-
And a code issue, right?
And a code probably, so.
Fire.
Yeah.
So,
Liability issue.
but yeah, the actual structure, if they were going to build something, yes, we would want to be part of the conversation.
I think that's the key, is the structure.
Right.
as opposed to-
They will build corrals on stables. That's what they're gonna do. They have to. There's no other choice. Either that or you're walking across 3,000 cables every day.
Yeah.
Not gonna happen.
That conversation is probably a city
Wow.
conversation
Yeah.
of how the infrastructure in the future is going to work for electric cars.
Structures, yeah.
It will not be an individual application for each one. It needs to be probably more of a wide breadth.
I do think at some point they're
Conversation.
probably gonna come with that direction. Remember, we talked about like the plugs that are in boxes in the macadam
Right,
and asphalt in
right.
the roads. But then, of course, it becomes, well, I want a box next to me, you know, and who gets the plug where.
Don't use my
Right,
box.
Right.
Yeah.
So it is going to be a much larger infrastructure discussion for the city of Newcastle then.
I don't want to feed your horse.
He stole my own.
Individual, yeah, an individual structure per home.
And I imagine the MSC is gonna be a huge.
They have to be in part,
stakeholder.
right, it's a collaboration of many
They have to
organizations
double the
within the
copper in the
city.
town. Someone has to pay for doing 100 years worth of work in the next 10.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
People haven't gotten their heads around how big this thing is.
Right,
And then MSC has to plug in someplace, and where's that gonna be?
yeah, so it's a very large conversation. I'm glad to hear planning is starting to talk about it, but you have many departments you have to bring together for that discussion, so. But thanks for bringing that up, Matt, so now you have your, kind of your answer.
Yeah.
And anything else? Okay, so motion to adjourn,
Motion to adjourn?
all in favor?
Aye.
Fabulous, thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everyone.
You.
Just off the record, what's our next step for us? Can we take the yellow thing out of our window? Can we?
Take the other thing